You know, with that beard, you're starting to look more and more like Riker.
Really? Well, shields up. Red alert!
Oh. Hi, and welcome to Geekology. I'm David Sibilia.
And I'm Sven Holly.
And tonight we're going to be doing an overview of the Masterpiece Transformers range. So Sven, yeah, someone's missing.
Who would that be?
I'm going to guess it's Optimus Prime.
Oh, you mean this one?
No.
This one?
No.
No? Okay. Have you been in Toys R Us recently?
Maybe.
This
maybe. You know what? No.
This one?
That's the one. I knew there was one missing.
Or do you mean this one?
No, I definitely meant this one.
Or possibly this one?
No, I'm sticking with this one.
Right. That's the 20th anniversary for the film version.
Which film?
There's only one Transformers film as far as I'm concerned.
IMBD disagree with you.
I know they do. But yes, we'll set these up a little bit behind and cut back to you in a moment.
And we're back from rearranging the Transformers. So what we basically have here is a good chunk of the masterpieces they've released over 9, nearly 10 years now. Yeah. Okay, now as we all know, I am not the Transformers fan, that's very much you, but I have kept up to date with the masterpieces. I know that there are a few missing here, but my knowledge is very sketchy. They appear to be mainly the different coloured versions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it just packaging variants and colour versions that aren't in this, or?
Well, it's only really Optimus Prime, where I've gone to the point where I'd like each different version, but even then I had to give it up because there's too many of them.
Mm.
I mean, there's still on to at least 3 more Optimus Primes in this range I haven't got.
Yeah.
Simply because they got to the point of near stupidity with the re-releases. One of them is basically, because that's MP01, which was the original Japanese release of that mould.
Yeah.
MP04 was that with a trailer. But the trailer was awful, and it didn't have roller in it, which is the little scout car. And was retailing between 300 and 400 pounds. So I was like, no. There was also this one, Sleep Mode, which I think was MP01S, which is basically depicting him after he died in Transformers the movie in 1986. So shockingly, not in a huge hurry to get that one, but that's basically this. And it looks black and white, but it's not actually. It's very, very, very dark red and very, very dark blue and so on and so forth to depict him as he changed colour in the film. And then there was MP01L, which was the last issue of that one before they then released this one, which is MP10. And the difference between this is the Japanese release, which you'll notice is a slightly darker blue.
Got the points, got the Japanese points.
Well, yes, but so is the British version.
I had noticed.
But interestingly, the interesting thing with the British version is because it's a lighter blue, it reminds me more of the Optimus Prime re-release of the same toy, but in G2, Generation 2. So that makes sense to me, is to have a G1 and a G2.
See, now that makes sense to you, G1, G2, and yet I only see one of these little beauties.
Yeah. They did do a black version of it, black and purple.
I have to say, of all the masterpiece ones,
yeah,
this is the most disappointing. purely because all the others really heavy,
Yeah.
really good
Up until
sturdy
that
toy.
point, certainly, yeah.
But love the stylisation in this. You know, the moulding is really nice, especially on the mask. All the silver trim. I mean, as a toy, this is a beautiful toy.
It's not really, because it's quite fragile. It doesn't hold together very well, especially this bit here. It keeps falling down. It's quite annoying. What is interesting though is you actually have 2 robot modes, where you basically swivel things and you see the face. You swivel the legs a bit and mess around with them, but there's a second face underneath. If I can get it to flip up. There we go. So you've got one face which is Rodimus Prime and one face which is Hot Rod. So basically you can regress him back to Hot Rod, and they designed it in such a way that when you've not got the trailer, he transforms into the Hot Rod car, and then it backs up into the trailer, which I haven't got with me, but because it's basically just opens up and has a gun in it, so it's just not interesting. And then basically you combine with the trailer and it looks like Rodimus Prime. Now this did get an American and British release. The colours were somewhat different because they seem to match up with some of the weird colouring in certain media. And came with a Target Master called Offshoot, which was basically Firebolt, which was because Hot Rod was originally re-released in 1987.
1 point.
Hot Rod was originally released in 1986 along with the Rodimus Prime toy. And in 1987 they re-released Hot Rod with a Target Master gun, which is basically Target Masters are little what look like robots. They're supposed to actually be humanoids from another planet that transform into guns, whereas you had the Headmasters which turned into the heads and Power Masters which turned into the engines and so on and so forth. And they had breast forms as well. We won't go there.
Yeah. That's up there with the only type of Transformers I really want the whole set from. Those Kiss Play ones.
Yeah.
They all, you know, I know you have issues with them, and that's fair enough, but I liked the toy. It was a good toy. And having played with many of your Transformers over the years, I like the masterpieces. Good weight, good construction, the quality of the toy is flawless. You really can't complain about them, although the price ticket attached to them is a little bit. I mean, now we all know that this one is my favourite, which ironically in the masterpiece range, he's not one. I thought originally that he was going to be all metal. I thought he was going to be very heavy. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, you have metal feet. That's it.
Yeah, it's disappointing because they could have done so much more with
The
it.
thing is with Megatron is that it was kind of a had to do one, but it doesn't quite work. But then in a lot of ways, and this is going to sound like heresy to a lot of people, the original toy in 1984 and 85 didn't really set the world on fire. So yeah, it's an interesting one. This is why Megatron's changed his alternative form so many times over the years now. It's because the original gun form, though was fascinating at the time, doesn't make a whole lot of sense that he transforms into a mode where Starscream pretty much has to pick him up.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
It would make more. I always thought he would make more sense as sort of a very large cannon that several of them had to use. That would have made sense.
Well, I mean, there was a comic where he turned into a cannon.
What?
Yeah, but it was basically a steampunk version of Transformers where they landed.
Steampunk Transformers.
Transformers.
You've got to loan me that one. I have to read that.
That's quite fun. When Optimus Prime turns into a steam train.
So, just on quality of the toy, which one is your favourite?
Well, anybody who knows me watching this is going to assume I'm going to say Optimus Prime right now.
No. Because I didn't say character. I said quality of the toy.
I'm going to have to go with the UK release of Grimlock.
Ah, yes. Now, there are many things that could be said about Grimlock in this form. Bling is the only one that, I mean, of all of them, by far the most colourful. I love the two-tone clear plastics.
Yeah.
The sword. Go on, do your favourite trick with the sword, because I know you love this bit.
So yeah, I mean, this is the UK edition of this. Now, I didn't go near the Japanese one for a couple of reasons, namely the accessories that came with the Japanese version.
Okay, what were they?
They were an apron and a tray.
Did it have Hello Kitty on?
No, and a tray of drinks.
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Season 3 of the original Transformers animated series, at one point he was serving drinks, and he also had it came with a cap to transfer his intelligence to Computron because there was some accident or something.
Oh, I'm sorry, you must have misheard me. I said, why?
Well, this is the thing. Is one of the things that annoys me about the Masterpiece line, and again, there's going to be loads of people thinking I'm a heretic for this, is that they're designed to be as accurate as possible to the original cartoon series.
Yes, but most Transformers fans constantly go on about G1 and the Japanese versions of the toys, so why is that a negative thing?
Well, there's a negative thing because in the animated series everything was simplified. The character designs were simplified, details were missed off from the toys, so on and so forth, and you had things like they decided all of the Autobots should have blue eyes and all the Decepticons should have red eyes, just to make it clearer which side they were on. All little things that just annoyed people who were brought up with the toys and possibly the comic first.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Transformers was a toy line before
First, yes.
a comic and before. And as the toy line goes, you can totally understand those changes. You know, you want your villains to be very easily identifiable from your bad guys. In the old days, it was cowboys always wore white.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, you get an evolution with toys. I mean, My Little Pony. As freaky as that sounds coming out of my mouth, and I know because I dated a My Little Pony fan. You go to the conventions and the events for those, and you do not want to start talking about evolution of toys then.
Yeah, I know.
Especially with the men that go to those things. If anybody has 2 minutes, check out on YouTube College Humour. Look for Brony. I hate to say it, but I've met some people very much like that. So yeah, as toy evolution goes, check that video out. Avoid the Transformer ones, however.
One of the things that I do find interesting though is that sometimes when we get the Japanese toys released in the West, in the USA and the UK, is suddenly little details to the toys change and make them more original toy accurate rather than original TV show accurate. Grimlock was the only one to go a little bit further for me, in that not only is there a couple of little details, silly as it sounds, these lines for instance, which aren't on the Japanese version, but they were stickers that came with the original Grimlock you put on yourself.
Right.
But there's this crown. Now, there was actually a version of this toy in Japan that came with the crown, but it was double the price of the normal one. It was only available through one retailer.
Was it gold-plated crown?
No.
Platinum? Was it at least metal?
It was just a small run, so the price was there. But when they released it in the States and in the UK, they added the crown, which was actually from the Marvel comic. Because at one point, after Optimus Prime had died, I think this was actually for the first proper death, Grimlock took command of the Autobots and sat on a throne with a crown. Actually went into battle with a crown at one point.
Unless that throne was made up of all the melted guns.
Yeah.
So
that is pretty cool.
By far your favourite. I'll just tuck those to one side. Now, massive scale differences.
Yes.
In them, and yet ironically not a massive price difference for the scale of the toy.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, one of the things that I think bit Takara in the backside is when they did the version of this, which was supposed to be the complete version, with the trailer.
And is, to be fair, just a fantastic toy.
Yeah. The fact that it came out at so much more money. So once they'd done a few of them, they've got up to MP09, and they'd basically seen a drop off of sales. mainly because the prices were just getting ridiculous. The yen wasn't doing awfully well against other currencies, and the market had gone very wrong. Every market had gone very wrong because it was actually after the 2007 collapse of everything, 2008 collapse of the entire financial markets. So to maintain some kind of viability in Masterpiece range, they stopped kind of and restarted with MP10, which is this Optimus Prime, convoy in Japan. So you actually get, for the same price around about that you would have had just this version, you got this, but you'll notice there's very little, if no metal in it. And you also got the trailer. Be careful that Megatron doesn't fall down because he's a bit wobbly on his old feet, his old Megatron. Oh, there he goes. Right. Now, if I pop that out, you'll notice that as well. Is when you move it around, the little feet actually come out, which is quite cool. Let's drop down. Now, when they did MP04 with this and a trailer, you got the trailer, and the trailer wasn't even long enough. It looked stubby. It didn't look quite right. Fortunately, with MP10, you got the trailer and you get Roller, which is a little scout car. And there we go. This is very reminiscent for anybody who's ever had the original Optimus Prime toy from 1984. There we go. So there we are. And because it's the Japanese release, you get the silver roller, whereas with the American and a British one, you get a blue roller. And inside it is Spike Witwicky.
Oh yes, hello Witwicky. This version doesn't bitch as much.
No. So there we go. Lovely toy. Open up the chest. I can't get it open without damaging it too much, because I always have problems with this. There we go. There's a little matrix inside it. This is quite fiddly getting into this one. That one's a lot easier to get into, the big one. But yeah, there's a little matrix inside there. It all folds up like it did in the original Transformers film. And the British one retailed at £100.
Yeah.
In Toys R Us. Which I think was, fair enough in a lot of ways. Okay, there were a couple of things where it's inferior to the Japanese version. The Japanese version is painted on the inside of the trailer. The British American one isn't. It's got the slightly lighter colour scheme, which is okay with me because it's the sensible variation because of the difference between G1 Optimus Prime, original G1, and reissue of it for G2. Makes sense. And it got the blue roller instead of silver. They did a couple of things which were pretty cool. It did come with an axe, like the big ones did back in the day. So I'll close that up. But one of the cool things they did with this is they actually finally explained what happened to Prime's trailer when he transformed into robot mode. This is something that wasn't on the original toy. The back of Roller opens up and you can actually flip out a hitching point. So you can hitch him up to the trailer, get it lined up. Sadly, easier said than done. There we go. And he wanders off with the trailer. Which makes perfect sense.
Very sensible, of course. I mean, what else could you possibly do in a Japanese cartoon with the back half of it?
Exactly. But this is the thing is. So basically the pain is felt by all three parts. So Roller, the trailer, and Prime. It was actually mentioned in one comic story, which wasn't actually in the comic, it was one of the British annuals. So the Americans haven't even seen it ever in the US print at all, where at one point the Decepticons, I think it's actually the Insecticons and Ravage, if I remember rightly, attack Optimus, and they miss Optimus and hit his trailer, at which point Optimus doubles over in pain.
I owe you a pint.
Where was that?
Right, well, I owe you a pint.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, so yes, in the one of the British annuals, basically, the Decepticons attacked, missed Prime, hit the trailer, Prime doubles over in pain, as if he's been hit in the stomach, and Bombshell's actually trying to go for him, and misses. Now, bearing in mind that in the story, Bombshell is an Insecticon who inserts Cerebro shells into other characters to take them over,
Right.
as he can control them. But in this story, it was 3 clones, kind of, of Insecticons who had no mind of their own, under the control of Ravage. Problem being at this point is that Bombshell misses Prime, hits Ravage, and injects Ravage with a Cerebro shell. So Ravage is under the control of Bombshell, who's under the control of Ravage.
So just delayed reaction.
So he basically, he just ends up with no mind.
Oh, okay.
He's completely devoid of intelligence, and he's just wandering around like a cat.
You know, we are going to get complaints for that cat comment.
Oh yeah.
You were worried about my brony comments.
Yeah.
We're going to get cat comments.
But
mind you, I don't think many Transformer fans own cats.
I think they finally do.
Really? I
yeah.
would have thought.
But they specifically get a black cat, and they call it Ravage.
So, for somebody who's looking to start out for the first time,
Yeah.
which of the masterpieces would you recommend? Purely on the quality of the toy.
Purely on the quality of the toy, I would have said Grimlock, but you could look finding one at a reasonable price now. They're gone. They went. I mean, he actually managed to shelf warm in this country for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've gone. If you can track down that Optimus Prime that was in Toys R Us UK, if you can find a Toys R Us that's still got one at £100, grab it. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but to me, he's worth it. Considering everything you get in it, he's worth it.
And the one to avoid?
One to avoid, Rodimus, and to be honest, Megatron. But I mean, I'm
Just metal feet, isn't it?
This Megatron toy is not brilliant. He's not stable, and because they've moved on with the range, they need to do another one anyway because he's too big to go with Optimus. So there's got to be another version of him coming. Whether they go with Megatron or just do Galvatron's another question. But yeah, there's got to be another version of him somewhere in the works at some point. Ones that are interesting at the moment, there's 2 Masterpiece toys that are in the UK now, which I haven't got yet, for reasons you can probably guess. One Soundwave, which I desperately must get because it's brilliant. Because Masterpiece Soundwave is roughly in scale with these guys, and it comes with all 5 of the original cassettes.
You know, we both like Soundwave.
Yeah.
But my favourite Soundwave one, doesn't matter how good they do that one, is still that Japanese one from a few years ago that was the MP3 player.
Yes.
That was an amazing toy. Why didn't they release more like that? That was just... And the earphones?
Yeah, the
The transformed
into
they were
Ravage and Rumble.
great!
Sorry, into Frenzy and Rumble, yeah.
Frenzy and Rumble, if they did more like that,
Yeah.
so many people would.
Well, the thing is, that wasn't released outside of Japan. The problem is with that particular toy was the fact it only supports a 1 gigabyte.
And it was a
mini
very
SD card.
specific memory card.
Yeah,
I had a
bit
bit trouble
strange.
locating one of those,
So,
actually.
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, this is the thing as well, is that even though Optimus Prime has been out in this country, the MP10 Optimus Prime as Masterpiece Optimus Prime has been out quite recently in the UK. They've actually restarted a numbering sequence, because they've never been numbered before outside of Japan. And Acid Storm, which is a repaint of that one, not these 2, because there's slight moulding differences, because they updated the mould, and they re-released Starscream at one point, so I haven't got the re-release, I've just got the original repaint, because the original one was in Pacific Green to go with the aircraft over in Japan. This is actually the Japanese release of the US recolor.
It gets good.
It gets
confusing.
good. So they've done this in bright green as Acid Storm, which is one of the jets you saw kind of appears just a little bit in the cartoon series.
Yeah.
And then they've done Soundwave, and Acid Storm is MP01 and Soundwave is MP02. Now, for any of you who've seen Soundwave in Toys R Us UK and going, that's £120, ouch, that's a lot of money. It is worth bearing in mind that if you'd imported it from Japan, Soundwave and Laserbeak would have cost you about 150 to 160, maybe even 200. And the packs of 2 cassettes, which would have been Ravage and Rumble, and Frenzy, and I think it was Buzzsaw that came, because Buzzsaw and Laserbeak keep getting swapped in releases over the years, so it gets rather confusing. But those packs tended to go for about 50 quid each. So total, you could very well have been looking at £300 to get the set that is now in Toys R Us UK at 120. So I can't knock that for value. Now the other thing to bear in mind with those 2 releases as well is they are actually the American versions with a sticker on the box.
Yeah.
Now, if you watch until the end of this video, there is something about Metroplex I need to tell you about, which we went through a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, the range is quite large now, but if you bear in mind the fact it got rebooted, now is not a bad time to kind of start. You need to hunt down a Prime, but the Japanese one's about to be reissued again with a stand, some kind of weird mobile stand, which is actually been released as part of the 30th anniversary in Asia. It might be worth picking one up that way, depending on the price, or if you can find one that's in a Toys R Us UK, yes, get that. 2 guys that aren't all that old in Japanese release are Red Alert and Sideswipe. There's been no sign of a release in the States or in the UK for these whatsoever yet. But as you can see, they're quite small, but this kind of matches in with this scale a little better, because the Autobot cars. Because the one thing you've got to bear in mind, okay, these Decepticon jets look quite tall in comparison with them, but originally there were twice as many Autobots as there were Decepticons. So it kind of balanced out in a way, and gave, and the Autobots had a tendency to go in teams of 2 to deal with things, which is why Transformers Energon was quite interesting when they did that, when the 2 Autobots tended to combine into one bigger robot to deal with a Decepticon who tended to be the same size as them 2 combined. So it made kind of made some sense. But these 2 are actually, they're Lamborghini Countach Mark IIs, and they're officially licensed from Lamborghini.
That's always nice.
So they're having to milk this mould for every penny they can get, because it's cost them so much money to develop the toy and get a license.
Yeah, but you can't blame them, considering what happened with the whole Bumblebee thing with the last film.
Yeah,
well, I say the last film.
Now there's an interesting thing as well, is that they have announced further Autobot cars. Now, Prowl, Blue Streak and Smokescreen are out before Christmas in Japan. So that's another 3, making 5 in total. Of the standard releases, that is. Which is quite interesting, because those 3 are actually Nissan Fairlady Zs, or Datsun Fairlady Zs as they would have been back in the day. They've also announced a Generation 2 version of Sideswipe, which basically is him in black with spikes on his wheels and big guns. And they've also announced Wheeljack, which is a Lancia, and Bumblebee, who's a VW. So something's happened somewhere along the lines, because Volkswagen, not that long ago, were going, we don't want anything to do with war toys. Slightly ironic, but won't go there. But yes, they've actually granted Takara a license to do Bumblebee as VW Beetle, or Bug if you're in the States, which is interesting. So what I think might be happening is Hasbro might be thinking, masterpieces that are solid cases, and now this size, you're going to have a solid case of about 6 in there. What you don't want in the UK and the US is a case of just him, or a case of just him. That wouldn't work. They would sit there. Now, if you did a case of, say, 6 different characters in that box, that'll work. So if they do them in an assortment, that might have a chance of selling in the States and in the UK a lot more than solid cases of these was. So I'm hoping that's why they haven't announced anything yet. They're waiting until they've got 6 characters they think will sell to go into a case. So fingers crossed. We'll see what happens with that. This one and this one have never had a release outside of Japan. This is a strange one in a lot of ways, because Scourge was a character in RID, in Robots in Disguise, which was also known as Transformers Co. Robots in Japan. He was basically a repaint of Generation 2 Optimus Prime for that range. So ever since then, there's been a tendency to repaint Optimus Primes in black. But he keeps having his name changed, this black version of Prime. He can either be Nemesis Prime or Scourge in the UK and Europe and in the States. And in Japan, he tends to get called either Nemesis Prime or Black Convoy or Dark Convoy and so on and so forth. But you'll notice he's got an Autobot logo on him. Ignore that one because I did that myself. He's got an Autobot logo moulded onto him. So that again doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I know you're confused by this one.
I know. There's a black one and a white one and they're not fighting. It doesn't seem right.
Yes, well, do you know who this is?
Yes. But only because I was paying attention when you were all excited when you got him.
This is one that confused the hell out of people. Because unless you really know your G1 and you have the G1 toy...
That would not be me.
Yeah. Most people won't recognise this as Ultra Magnus. Because an Ultra Magnus, as far as most people are concerned, is this big red and blue robot who has quite large round antennae in his head. And this is an interesting thing because there's so many people who got very, very confused when people started doing artwork. Now there's only been one occasion, and this was in a Dreamwave comic, where Ultra Magnus was ever seen in his naked robot form, which is basically this. You've basically got this. This is essentially Ultra Magnus uncombined with this trailer. Now, they've never done a version of him with this trailer. As I said, there's 2 new releases out in the UK at the moment, which is Soundwave and Acid Storm. I haven't got yet. However, I have got a couple of things I haven't opened yet. That one. And that one. Now, this is your pretty much the standard Japanese packaging, which is, I mean, look at that. It's
yeah, I can see the artwork and the print on the box.
Now, what's interesting is they've kind of emulated this in a way with with MP01 Acid Storm and MP02 Soundwave. They're using purple boxes rather than black for those two. They're both Decepticons, so I'm kind of hoping that will turn to red for any Autobots they do in that range. But they've kind of gone for this kind of printing.
This metallic sheen is just
now that one is actually. I'm not sure about this one. I don't think this was general release. I think this was actually a retailer exclusive. This one was an actual event exclusive.
Wow.
Now the interesting thing is Takara Tomy supports unofficial events, if you see what I mean. It doesn't have to be the official Transformers convention, because now there is only one official Transformers convention for the entire world, which is BotCon in the States.
Yeah.
There doesn't appear to be a BotCon or anything like it happening in Japan anymore, which is kind of a shame.
It is, considering it's the birthplace.
Yeah. Now what's interesting is that the official Transformers Collectors Club, which run BotCon now, they actually share their exclusives with eHobby in Japan, who then share their exclusives back, because they're a retailer who have quite a few exclusives and have done over the years. But this has meant that Takara Tomy, they're not under the same contracts as Hasbro are. So they're quite happily doing exclusives for different toy shows.
Yeah.
Which is slightly annoying for me in a way, but as you can imagine. Because at one point, for auto assembly, when I was still working on auto assembly, we were told by Hasbro UK, well, we were told by Hasbro US via Hasbro UK, no, you cannot have an exclusive toy. The only place it's going to get exclusive toys is the official Transformers Collectors Club convention, which at the time was, because it's changed hands since then.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, though, is that since then, San Diego Comic Con started getting exclusives, so we're a bit.
Go knock exclusives.
I know.
You know, I'm a big fan of their exclusives.
Now, this is basically that, but based on him, which is quite cool. But you'll notice he's actually got a Decepticon logo instead of an Autobot one now, so I've actually corrected that. They've actually made him a back guy, which makes more sense. If this was to be released in the States or here in the UK, it would be as Nemesis Prime, as Black Convoy in Japan. The only differences between that and MP10 is the fact you don't get a trailer with it, because it was a limited run, special recolour. It was going to be expensive enough as it was without putting the trailer in the box. You know what I mean? Tiger Track, this is an interesting one. What he is Sideswipe in yellow.
Yes, because we know the yellow ones are so popular.
Yes. Well, what's interesting is that before Transformers, this was a Diaclone toy. Diaclone. Now, the Diaclone release was actually available in yellow and in red. Very, very, very late on, indeed, before Transformers were released. And indeed, this is mentioned apparently in the writer's Bible for the cartoon series. Sideswipe was supposed to be yellow. And they switched colours. Now, because Sunstreaker, which was his brother in the cartoon, was actually a different mould entirely, because he was a Lamborghini Countach 1, whereas this is a Lamborghini Countach Mark II. Sunstreaker was basically available in red and as a police car in Diaclone, and was released in Transformers as yellow. Very strange. What it looks like is that very, very late on in development, Sideswipe and Sunstreaker were swapped bodies, because Sideswipe's tech spec and bioprofile readout basically tell you he's got a rocket pack, and there was no sign of a rocket pack on his toy anywhere, whereas Sunstreaker kind of has this weird thing on his back. Could have been a rocket pack. So it does suggest that the two swap places very, very late on. And perhaps the yellow Sideswipe was supposed to be Sunstreaker and the red Sunstreaker was supposed to be Sideswipe. Who knows? You know, someone back then probably were playing around with it. So that's quite an interesting way things went. But yeah. But this packaging is gorgeous.
It is.
It's absolutely wonderful. So, I mean, MP10 came in basically a box about this big. It's quite cool. Whereas the British one is a window box and looks a bit boring.
You know, I like window boxes. There are lots of fans out there, like myself, who aren't particularly into the cartoon, but enjoy the toy.
Yeah.
And for display purposes, window boxes make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I must say with window boxes is when I got my Optimus, is that I was going through 5 or 6 of them before I found one that was actually in decent nick.
Yeah.
Because the paint had gone awry and little things, just because I'm picky as hell. Another thing to notice as well is that one has character artwork, and that one's just got a picture of the toy, which is interesting. The original, the Sideswipe and the Red Alert boxes just have toy pictures, they don't have a character image, which is interesting. So, pretty cool. But Masterpiece Transformers as a range, they're great. I mean, these guys, they seem expensive, because depending on which retailer you go to, they can be up to 80 quid. And there is no metal in them whatsoever.
No, but they are a far superior quality of toy in comparison with the original release of the toy.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there's
Yeah,
so much...
there is no very. You can't really compare the two.
No.
It's
not.
very unfair to do so.
I mean, it's a shame we've lost the die-cast parts in a way.
It is, because they really do add a lot of heft to the. You feel like you're getting your money's worth.
But then the cost of metal has gone through the roof. So if you did make the, I mean, if this had the same amount of die cast in it as the original toy did, you would not be seeing this under £100 in a million years, and it would be very heavy.
Well, yeah, shipping costs have to be put into it.
Absolutely. But yes, red alert there. It's quite cool. But yeah, there we go. Now, as I said earlier, Metroplex. This is a bit nasty. Metroplex has finally been released in the UK, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately.
Well, it looks like we were warned about a week before it came out. News started flowing around that there was unconfirmed reports that they'd messed with the sound chip. It turns out they have messed with the sound chip. They've taken all the speech out.
Pure sound effects only?
Just sound effects only. It's just got the transformation metallic effects in it. Now,
did they at least add extra sounds?
I don't believe so. It sounds like they've just cut the speech out. Now, this is because it's an international version. They have actually done a specific run that's for outside the USA and outside Japan. So, it might be a case of, because it's going, say, into French-speaking countries, they would have gone mental if it was speaking English, for instance, which doesn't make any sense to me because it's from the game. The game wasn't messed with.
Did they not translate the game?
I don't
for the
believe
other
so.
countries?
I don't believe they did. I mean, I believe they did translations on the bottom of the screen and things like that, but I don't believe they actually changed the voice.
Maybe your toy would be really expensive to have translated.
Yeah, exactly. So, so they've done that, which is a shame. Not completely unforgivable in a way.
The toy still remains the same.
It still toy remains, but it didn't.
Oh no! What else did they throw in?
There's been a lot of quality control issues.
Oh no!
It looks like there's some theories that we're starting to be used as a dustbin by Hasbro USA, in that runs of toys are basically being made cheaper for shipping over to us, and plastic quality is dropping, or they're actually finding faulty runs of things and sending them over to us rather than dealing with them themselves. I wouldn't like to say that's exactly what they're doing.
That's a very strange business model for any company.
I can't believe that's been done on purpose in a way, but it's starting to look quite dodgy, especially for this toy. There have been reports of other toys where people have compared an American import with the European release, and the quality has taken a drop. But this one especially, you know, the floppiness.
Oh yeah.
It's got worse. Things like joints aren't working. The arm that you put in when you take it out of the box isn't clicking in properly, and doesn't seem to be lined up, or has a damage to it, and all this kind of stuff. So it looks like a softer plastic might have been used. Something like this. It's actually got to the point where I know one person, hi Marcus, who's basically not letting anyone near his child because he doesn't think it's safe enough, which makes you wonder and he's quite happy with the child playing with a Fort Max or Brave Max type toy, which can't pass the tests over here, but he's more happy with playing that than he does with the Metroplex that's been released in the UK. So if you want a Metroplex, the Transformers Generations branded Metroplex, which is actually from Fall of Cybertron, really, try and get an American one. So
with that very long Transformers video, see, you know what?
But they've even gone themselves, they've had enough and gone home. Why are you still here?
The next one will be a short one, I promise. Short video for the next one.
About this short?
Yes, about this short actually. The next review will be for Creo's City Invasion. Absolutely fantastic toy that my local retailer was good enough to get in for me. Thank you. So I should imagine that'll be the next review, unless something amazing happens in the next 7 days. Thank you very much for watching. As per normal, check out all the links underneath for both Geekology on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter. Also, stop playing! And also feel free to check out this Madman shop. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Good night. Sorry.